He is remembered in history as the mad monk who gained the favour and friendship of Tsar Nicholas II and his wife Tsarina Alexandria, and he helped to treat their son, but the life of Rasputin was brought to an end in rather shocking and ruthless circumstances, and the story of his death is one which has a number of steps. He wouldn't go down without a fight, and he also couldn't be poisoned either, but eventually he was shot and his body was dumped into a river, and it was later fished out and discovered. To the people of the country, Rasputin was seen as a dangerous meddler, and he was someone who attracted a huge amount of suspicion as to his influence over the royal family. Some even believed that he may have been sleeping with the Tsarina. But what happened after his death was shocking and brutal, and he was subjected to a terrible fate in the months and years after his death, with his corpse being desecrated. And to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Born in 1869 in a small Siberian village, Rasputin had little formal education. In his youth he developed a reputation for being wild, but later he underwent a religious transformation. He wandered as a pilgrim and claimed visions from God, and earned a reputation as a mystic. By the early 1900s he had made his way to St. Petersburg, the capital of the Russian Empire. There, he was introduced to Tsar Nicholas II and Tsarina Alexandra. The royal couple were desperate. Their only son and heir, Alexei, suffered from haemophilia, a life-threatening blood disorder. Rasputin seemed to have a mysterious ability to ease Alexei's suffering, whether through prayer, hypnosis, or simply his calming presence. Alexandria, deeply religious, became convinced Rasputin was sent by God to protect their son. This gave Rasputin extraordinary influence at court. He advised the royal family, interfered in political appointments, and was rumoured to have control over the Tsarina herself. Too many aristocrats and politicians, Rasputin was a dangerous charlatan whose presence discredited the monarchy. By 1916, Russia was in crisis. The First World War was going badly, millions of soldiers were dead, the economy was collapsing, and public anger was rising. Many nobles blamed Rasputin, who was thought to have too much influence over Alexandria while Nicholas was away at the front. A group of aristocrats decided Rasputin had to die. The leader of the conspiracy was Prince Felix Yusupov, the fabulously wealthy husband of the Tsar's niece. He was joined by the Grand Duke Dmitry Pavlovich, a cousin of the Tsar, and Vladimir Purishkovich, a right-wing politician. They believed that killing Rasputin would save the monarchy and restore public confidence in the throne. The conspirators lured Rasputin to Yusupov's Palace on the night of the 29th of December, or 16th December Old Style, 1916. They told him that Yusupov's beautiful wife Irina wanted to meet him. Rasputin, who was known for his weakness for women, agreed. Irina, in fact, was not even in St. Petersburg at the time. What happened next has been told and retold so many times that it has become difficult to separate fact from fiction. The most famous version comes from Prince Yusupov himself, who later wrote about that night in his memoirs. According to Yusupov, Rasputin was taken to a basement room with cakes and wine laced with cyanide were waiting for him. The conspirators expected him to collapse after a few bites, but to their astonishment, Rasputin seemed unaffected. He ate the poisoned cakes, drank the wine, and continued to chat happily. Hours passed, and still he lived. Panicked, Yusupov retrieved a revolver and shot Rasputin in the chest. At last, the mad monk slumped to the floor, and believing him dead, Yusupov went upstairs to celebrate with his fellow plotters, but when he returned to check on the body, Rasputin suddenly leapt up, his eyes blazing, and lunged at him. Terrified, Yusupov ran, and Rasputin staggered up the stairs and out into the courtyard. Purishkovich then fired several more shots, one of which struck Rasputin in the back, and even so, some versions say Rasputin was still alive when they tied him up and threw him into the icy Nerva River. Later, when his body was recovered, it was rumoured that water was found in his lungs. proving that he had drowned rather than died from poison or bullets. This extraordinary story quickly spread, fueling the idea that Rasputin was almost impossible to kill, a demonic figure with supernatural endurance. While Yusupov's account is gripping, historians doubt much of it. Modern medical examinations suggest the truth was less dramatic. Rasputin's body, when found, did not show signs of poisoning. In fact, there's no real evidence that cyanide was ever used that night, and historians think the conspirators may have invented this detail to make the story more sensational. The autopsy showed that Rasputin had been shot multiple times. One bullet struck his liver, another his kidney, and a third his forehead. That final shot to the head was almost certainly the fatal one. The idea that he had drowned has also been questioned. In reality, Rasputin's death was brutal, but not quite as miraculous as the legend suggests. He was lured to a palace, shot several times, and finally killed with a close-range bullet to the head. But let's look at the autopsy a little deeper. It's confirmed, of course, that he had been killed after he was shot 3 times. One shot was on the left side of his chest, another was in his back, and the third shot was deemed to be fatal, and this was the one to his forehead. The doctor in charge also, as mentioned, couldn't find signs of poisoning, meaning he had not eaten anything laced with cyanide. There was also no water found in Rasputin's lungs, meaning he had been killed before he was thrown into the water, with his body being discarded as a means of trying to get rid of it. Also, the bullet wounds, which showed damage to the liver and kidney, could also have been fatal too. There was also a partial detachment of his right ear, and described as the avulsion of the right eye. What this meant was that someone had tried to hack off part of Rasputin's ear and also tried to pull out his eye. There was also discovered injuries to his face and body, which would have been caused by a flexible but blunt object, showing he had been struck and beaten with something. Now, after the autopsy, news of his murder spread quickly, and then Rasputin was buried and was given a small funeral. The funeral was attended by only the imperial royal family and some of their closest companions, and Rasputin's wife, his mistress, and his children were not invited. After the funeral, he was buried inside a small church in Tsarskoye. The royal family planned to build a church over Rasputin's grave. However, they could not do this, as his body was exhumed and destroyed by a group of soldiers after Tsar Nicholas II abdicated the throne in March of 1917. The opposition were concerned the grave would become a rallying point for those who supported the monarchy, and with this they dug up the monk's body and remains and dealt with them once and for all. It was claimed of this that, sometime after midnight, another band of soldiers broke into the tiny chapel in the imperial park which had become Rasputin's tomb and exhumed the coffin. They took it to a clearing in the forest, pried off the lid and, using sticks to avoid touching the putrefying corpse, lifted what remains of Rasputin onto a pile of pine logs. The body and logs were then drenched with gasoline and set on fire. For more than 6 hours, the body burnt while the icy winds howled through the clearing, and clouds of pungent smoke rose from the pyre. Along with the soldiers, a group of peasants gathered, silent and afraid, to watch through the night as the final scene of this baleful drama was played. It had happened, as Rasputin once predicted. He would be killed and his body not left in peace but burned, with his ashes scattered to the winds. What had happened was that a group of soldiers had dug up his grave and removed the coffin from it, and they then opened it. They found the body was decaying heavily, as was expected, and it had not been embalmed, and obviously significant wounds, and also had been submerged in water. The body was then set on fire, and it was burnt to the point where it was reduced to ash, and some even gathered to witness the proceedings. This meant that no remains of Rasputin existed, and the ashes just scattered. There is the place of the grave that is marked today, but obviously nothing actually exists within the grave. The death of Rasputin remains one of history's most dramatic assassinations. Although legends tell of poison, miraculous survival, and drowning beneath the ice, the reality is simpler, yet still chilling. Rasputin was shot multiple times by a group of nobles who believed they were saving Russia. Instead, his murder only deepened the sense of crisis facing the Romanov dynasty. Within months, the Tsar was overthrown, and the world of the Russian aristocracy vanished forever. Rasputin's story endures not because of who he really was, but because of what he came to symbolise: the mystery, the decadence, and the downfall of the last days of Imperial Russia. Thank you for watching, and to support, please subscribe, and again, thank you so much for watching.